So what now? So what now? What are the implications of this disciplinary decision, the overturning of Owen Farrell's red card yesterday? What are the implications of this for the Rugby World Cup? For coaches, for teams, for players, for fans, for the sport in general? I've got a lot of questions, and spoiler alert, on this video, I don't have really any answers, I'm afraid. Hopefully you can fill in some of the gaps for me. Please, if so, in the comments. Because I love rugby. It's given me so much in my life. I've played it since the age of 5. Played it my whole life at varying levels. My brother was a pro for 15 years. My son now plays. I coach my son's under 16 rugby team. I coach a university team. I work in rugby on the telly, on the radio. I have a podcast, and now I have this channel as well as of this year, and thank you very much for your support. And so the context here is I want as many people as possible to enjoy rugby union. It's an amazing sport. It's given me so much, and it gives so many so much. But it does not help itself, does it? Another PR own goal from rugby, shock horror. And I want people to be talking about the incredible players, the amazing matches. Like we had a France v Scotland at the weekend was an unbelievable game, which has got hardly any attention in the last few days. This wall-to-wall attention on all news media outlets for a lot of people. This infighting and bickering within rugby, caused by the sport administration itself, is all anyone has heard of rugby in the last week. And we're 3 weeks out from a Rugby World Cup. It's maddening. So yeah, I've got a lot of questions. And I am a proper rugby nerd, as you may have noticed. And so yeah, even when I'm away with the family, visiting some family down here, it's lovely, isn't it? By the way, some people thought that like there were boats stranded. No, tide just comes in and out, by the way. It's quite funny seeing some of the comments on that. Yeah, tide going out. This is Exmouth. It's lovely, isn't it? So this was underwater about an hour ago. Anyway, so where was I? Yes, lots of questions. So I'm a total rugby nerd, and so I woke up this morning. I thought, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to grab a cup of coffee, and I'm going to sit and I'm going to read the entire Independent Judicial panel's review to see why and how and what information they had to come up with the decision that they came up with. I am a nerd like that. I would read the whole thing. Problem is, it doesn't exist. Well, it does exist. It's just we're not allowed to see it. It is not being released. Transparency at a point like this would be really useful, wouldn't it? But no, we're not allowed to see it. We're not going to see it. And when you have a little vacuum like that, vacuums get filled with, well, all kinds of stuff that may be true and may not be true. It may be that there's corruption at the top of the game, and some people are filling the vacuum with that. It may be that some countries get preferential treatment. The vacuum's getting filled with that. It may be that the independent panel had some information that we're not aware of. They may have seen and heard things that we don't know about that might make their decision a little bit more understandable. If that's the case, shouldn't we see it? Either way, shouldn't we see it? I cannot understand not releasing this report. It's really frustrating. So, yeah, I didn't get to read that. So I've got a load of questions, don't have any answers. One fact that I did find out though, because again, I am a nerd and I go and find out stuff like this. I had quite a few comments saying World Rugby should overturn this decision. And my kind of thought and response to that was, well, how can they? Because this is a World Rugby appointed panel. I was wrong on that. So World Rugby do have panels. In fact, I don't know the ins and outs of when some panels get used and when some don't, but bottom line is this was an EPCR panel. I assume maybe because it's 2 nations from Europe, perhaps, England and Wales. Anyway, it was an EPCR panel. It was 3 Australians sat on this independent panel, but that means it's not World Rugby. So potentially, I guess, World Rugby could intervene, and they may well be looking at this hornet's nest that they've stirred up and think maybe we should intervene. So perhaps, yeah, that's something I didn't know this time yesterday. So there we go. That's the first thing. But other than that, I've just got a load of questions. And I'm going to ask these questions now. If you know the answer to any of them, help me out. Okay, so question number 1. Oh, sorry, before I do that, I just want to say, on the whole, keeping the report behind, I don't know, under lock and key. I don't get it. World Rugby are actually quite good sometimes at releasing their reports. And again, I don't know why some get released and some don't, but a good example recently, another international captain, fly half, Johnny Sexton, his report was fully transparent, and all the better for it. I sat down and I read the full Johnny Sexton report, and that I think helped me come to a fully informed decision on what I felt about it. And I could, and again, that's why on the video yesterday I said, I don't think there's any conspiracy here, because I read that report and thought, all right, I might have gone for a slightly longer ban myself, but I see what these guys were getting at, and maybe 6 games, halved to 3 for good behaviour was fair. The point being, I was able to read that, make a decision, and then actually I became an advocate for World Rugby's decision-making process. I've defended the people making that decision. What's happening now is the people making the decision, we don't know why, we don't know what they heard. So here's some questions. Do you have any answers to these? Number 1, on the specific decision, is that now the standard for a yellow card, but not a red card offence? If there is a sudden and significant change in direction, is that now being issued as a memo to referees so that they understand that that's what the rules now are? A coach is now being told that they can tell their players that that's what a yellow and red card now is. I mean, all we want is consistency, right? We don't want to have a situation where an identical set of circumstances happen and 3 other independent panellists come up with a different decision. So what are you doing about that, World Rugby? You changing your guidelines a bit? Which leads me on to second question. Will World Rugby amend their framework, which up until now said mitigation can only be applied when a player is legal? In other words, if a player has no arms involved in a tackle, a no arms tackle, you cannot apply mitigation. This is as I understand it. Tell me if I've got this wrong. And also, if a player is always high, and I said this on the video yesterday, I saw Owen Farrell as always high, and that's why I didn't agree with the decision, then you cannot apply mitigation. World Rugby, are you now allowed to apply mitigation in those circumstances? What was the information the panel used to come up with their decision, and are things now changing? Please let us know. That's my second question. Do you know the answer to that? Number 3, what did the TMO report say? Because here's my thinking, again, because we don't know, this is my guess. This is my best guess about what's happened. The TMO should have said in their report, I decided to upgrade it from a yellow to a red, blah, 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 blah. I considered the mitigation of the sudden and significant change in direction from the player bouncing off of white to. However, I did not apply that mitigation because the tackling player was always high, and therefore I cannot apply the mitigation. My guess is the TMO in their report didn't even mention the change in direction, and that left the door open for the argument, rightly or wrongly. So that might be a little, again, we don't know because we can't see the report, but that may be an implication. TMOs, refs, dot your I's and cross your T's on your reports so we can have all these things covered off. Next question. What submissions did Warren Gatland and or Tane Basham make to the panel? Warren Gatland after the game came out slightly in defence of Owen Farrell, saying he hopes he loves Owen Farrell, he's picked him for the Lions. He hopes that and he might have been thinking about a World Cup quarter-final as well against England and that whole politics there. So what did Warren Gatland say, if anything, to the panel? Did he come out strongly in defence of him? Did Tane Basham come out strongly in defence of him? And if they did, would that change your mind in any way? Did it change the panellists' mind? Again, we don't know because, yes, we're not allowed to see the report. So another question with no answers, but it would be good to know, wouldn't it? And any guidelines moving forward on what is and isn't, quote, sudden and significant? Because can we just have some clarity? I personally don't like that in England this is happening, and I think this is happening more broadly in rugby, isn't it? I don't like that the sport at the elite level is becoming more and more different from the sport at the grassroots level. I don't like that. I'd prefer the laws to be the same across the board. And what I especially don't like is that within those different factions, the elite game or the grassroots game, it's sometimes hard to to read between those lines, to know what's going on in those individual areas. So are there going to be some more guidelines and understanding? Because as I say, coming back to at the start of this video, we're 3 weeks away from a Rugby World Cup. We want to go out and enjoy the rugby. We want to be talking about the tries and the players and the matches, not getting bogged down in the weeds of this stuff. So clarity is essential. And I just feel like rugby ties itself in knots sometimes. And as you might be able to tell from this video, I'm trying to calm down. It gets me a little frustrated because I love the sport. I love the sport. And that's what it comes down to. I want to. This is our shop window. So can we nip this stuff in the bud quickly, and move on and talk about the great players and the matches? Right. I'm going to get back to my my family who are just over there, and I'm going to put my phone down and try and. No, I won't be able to forget about rugby. I'm just going to be. It's going to be ticking away in the background. And I will be checking in with the comments. So please leave yours. Thank you very much for your support of the channel. It's just me. I'm going out to France and I'm going to be soaking up as much rugby from as many different countries as I can. And I hope you'll be with me for the journey, just as you are right now on my journey during my kids' summer holidays. Nice one. See you on the next one.